Yo, what's going guys, Conduct here, and this might be the sickest product that I'm ever gonna show you guys on this YouTube channel. It's absurd in what it can do, and it's also absurd on the amount of money that I wasted in order to import this from the US to the EU. Yeah man, custom taxes is a real pain in the ass, you know. But anyways, these are the StretchSense Studio gloves, and what they are, they're mocap gloves. So essentially what they do is they record your hand movement and they send the data over to your computer so you can use it to animate 3D characters, or you can use it for SteamVR gaming. The gloves are pretty well made, they feel comfortable and grippy on the inside. On the outside shell, we have the well-hidden sensors, the tracking mount, and this rectangular computer thing which you can detach in order to wash the gloves. On the box it comes with obviously the gloves, 2 USB cables, 2 universal mounting screws, 2 plates, the connecting dongle, a pretty cool bag, and some documentation. The gloves come in S, M, and L size, which means that you can't simply toss them away to one of your friends so they can try them out. They have to have kind of the same hand measurements as yours, and if they don't, it's going to lead to badly calibrated gloves, and if they're using SteamVR, it's going to lead to misinputs. So how do you start using the gloves? Well, first things first, you want to download hand engine software from StretchSense, which is accessible through an email they sent you once you order the gloves. You need to set up an account, and inside you'll find the download links for everything you need, as well as useful tutorial videos which I recommend you to watch once you receive the gloves. This can also be accessible through a QR code within the box. Then, you want to plug the USB connecting dongle. Since this is our first time, it's going to ask to update its firmware. In order to reset the firmware, you need to reach this really small hidden button, which you'll need a SIM eject tool. Now I hope you haven't trashed your phone box, cause otherwise you can't update the firmware. Kinda weird why they chose to do it this way, but I guess it's to prevent accidental firmware resets. Once it's updated, you want to connect the gloves by going into the main unit and pressing on this rectangular button. You'll see a green light, and once it's colored blue, it means you're successfully connected. During this stage, you might as well put the trackers on top. I'm using HTC Vive free trackers. But if you can't get the Tundra trackers or any lighter tracker, it's going to make the hand mount less wobbly. It's super easy to mount the tracker. All you have to do is put the tracker on top and the universal mounting screw on the bottom, and just twist the universal screw until it's securely placed. Then we can head onto the hand engine software and calibrate each individual hand, which is as simple as following these steps shown. There's a lot more things you can do on the hand engine software, such as recording your hand data, which you can then export it to use on animated characters. And also, maybe in the future we might be able to emulate Xbox controllers or even PS5 controllers, because this technology allows it to do so. Or maybe even steering wheels for racing sims. But for the sake of this video, I'm only going to be showing you guys how to connect it to SteamVR. Now this is probably the most difficult part of having these gloves, and I want you guys to take your time on making the bindings as you are going to be tuning ever so often. In this StretchSense SteamVR version, you cannot delete any binds apart from the joystick control. If you do mess up and accidentally bound a key to a glove gesture and then you decide you no longer want that key to be pressed, you cannot delete it unless you reset the entire binding system. I hope StretchSense launches an update to fix these frustrating issues. There are infinite possibilities to binding these gloves. You can follow StretchSense binds, or you can create your own. For example, in order to deactivate the glove control, I set it to the middle finger, as well as I have some keys bound to one hand, not on the other, in order to avoid misinputs. Since the more binds you add, the larger the margin of error. Also, make sure the gloves are connected to SteamVR and you don't have any of these red errors by heading to the above button to reset connections. Once this is done, you can finally head onto VR. Once you're in VR, you're gonna see Valve and X controllers, because that's what the gloves are trying to emulate. However, if the game has glove support, such as VR chat, you're going to see your actual hands, which in VR chat, you can turn them on in the control settings, as you can see here. Or you can go with the much accurate glove, which I do keep it on just in case if there's an avatar without hands and things might mess up. Alright, so let's talk about having gloves. The best feature is of course having full finger tracking. You're able to fully express yourself in ways you simply couldn't with having controllers, and this is super important, especially for sign language. The next thing is the whole immersion. Being able to grab objects with your actual hand is pretty awesome, making the only thing missing haptic feedback. And of course, we can't miss the ability to type on your keyboard without having a controller dangling on your arm, which makes this seem like a dream for DJs. There are other VR gloves out there such as the UTCAP, EUZ, DiverX and many others, some including different control options such as adding physical buttons on the gloves. But StretchSense is one of the few companies that is leaning towards button-free gloves, which I thought at first it was going to be pretty messed up, but it's surprisingly good. So let's talk about the company itself, StretchSense. They've been around for some time, they have other glove products, leaning more towards professionals, so they clearly know what they're doing. My experience with them was absolutely phenomenal. The support team is active, their Discord server has a lot of people communicating with one another and also giving advice to new users. If you have any issues, their staff members are actively responding to questions, so they're by no means a sketchy brand, and you can most likely rely on them. Which is an absolute must, especially when you're spending this amount of money on an early product, as these gloves will set you back a total of $549 for early access members, and the final product is going to cost $795, and that is not including the 2 external trackers which you have to buy separately. But the question that we all have to ask ourselves, especially for SteamVR, is are the gloves any better than controllers? And what I mean by this is that at the end of the day, they are gloves for your hand. And it's not like you didn't had hands with regular controllers, unlike full body which you had to get the trackers in order to get your legs moving. And to be honest, most people are going to point out that you have hand tracking and they'll most likely assume that you have Valve and X controllers or using Meta's hand-free system, which you then have to explain that you're a very special user and you're using gloves and not some cheap controllers. So what do you guys think? Is it worth buying these gloves, or should you wait a while longer to see if technology evolves? Tell me in the comments down below, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out.